If your definition of we still has you at the center, you're likely a bottleneck for your team's effectiveness. You're probably limiting their engagement and ultimately could be impacting their willingness to stay. Hello, I'm Ron Minatrea, and this is the Exponential Mindset Leadership Podcast, where our goal is to help you not only lead more effectively, but also to live more fully. Today, I want to talk about the exponential mindset principle we call put we before me. Years ago, I moved into a role where one of the people who would now report to me was responsible for a facility that included a handful of distinct operations. And each of those had a manager. And so those managers, along with a few other staff members, all reported directly to this new person, this lady that was now on my staff. But as I began to get to know more about the operation and about the people, of course, one of the things that became obvious from the very beginning was that my new staff member, was extremely busy. But her team was not near as busy. But I think more than a difference in the level of busyness was the atmosphere felt different. Around my new staff member, the atmosphere felt frantic. It was chaotic all the time. But with her team members, I think frustration would be a better description of the atmosphere, maybe disengagement or checking out. So as I looked deeper, I found what I thought I might find, which is that each department head seemed very capable. They knew and understood their operation. They knew what needed to be done, and they knew how to do it. But the leadership style of the plant manager was holding them back. She was using what I call the do, direct, delegate model. Here, as the manager, with everything, you either do it yourself, you direct someone else to do it, and often how, or you delegate it to someone at some level, but that rarely comes with complete autonomy. So it's this very hands-on model because everything runs through me, the manager. Now, this style isn't always bad, but if the manager holds on tight like that, it can really stifle a team. And it feels very transactional. I need this. Okay, here's what you asked for. Now I need this. Okay, now here's what you asked for. What do you need next? And often I think with good people, that's why you see engagement drop, because competent people are looking for more than a transactional experience. That work's not fulfilling for them. They'll go looking for other outlets for their talents because they're not being allowed to bring the best of what they have to offer. And that's why retention becomes an issue, because people don't want to stay in an environment where they're not growing or they're not being challenged or able to do truly meaningful work that's meaningful to them. And obviously, it doesn't take long to see that if you just keep going down this slide, team performance will suffer. And that's not just because you are disengaged or disincenting your best people. It's because you, the manager, have become the bottleneck for everything that happens. And that means you're limiting the team's output and capacity by your own capacity. But it doesn't just stop there, by the way. You are limiting your own growth and advancement opportunities. If you're leading a really small team of direct reports, you can get away with this for a while by working harder, staying later. You can keep all those plates spinning, but the higher you go, the broader your scope, the less this approach will scale. And the result is you're not able to move up or broaden your responsibilities because you're already tapped out right where you are. So how might changing our thinking help here? Remember, the mindset shift we want to make is to put we before me. I think to do that effectively, we really need to think differently in a handful of areas. The first is fundamentally how we think about what we even means. So we can be defined as the person speaking, referring to themselves, and those with whom they share something in common. But with that definition, we tend to see ourselves at the center of we, because it's the person speaking. But if everyone sees themselves at the center, then we won't be functioning well as a team. So here's the shift that we need to make. Let's put what we share at the center of the we. Instead of me being the nucleus with everything revolving around me, let's put what we share and make in the center and make that the nucleus, and everything revolves around that. Well, that begs the question then, what is it that we share? What do we share in common, if you will? Now, obviously, how we answer that question can be important because there's a lot of layers to it. So let's dig into that. I'll use the example. My wife and I have been married a long time. You could say we are a couple. Or you could expand that to consider my kids and grandkids and say we are a family. But being a couple or being a family and being a team, that only describes what we are. Those are descriptive labels. But what binds us together, what we want to revolve everything around, has got to run deeper than a label. We're not trying to describe what we are. We want to know who we are. Think of a sports team, for instance. Everyone on the team shares the team name, okay? Whether that's the Bears, the Packers, Cowboys, whatever. But the important element of becoming a team is more than in the name. It's in who they are. It's how they practice or how they play, how they treat each other. And it's that, what is it that they're all working together toward? And I think that's true of any healthy we. Let's take your team, for example. Your team should share more than a department name or functional title. It's not that we are sales or we are engineering or we are manufacturing. It's that as sales or as engineering, this is how we think, believe, and behave. This is who we are. So our whole aim here is to shift from the me-centered we, where it feels like, hey, everybody on the team is just an extension of me, or where they're all here to do what I need them to do, to begin thinking of we as an identity that's shared by all the diverse individuals, each of them making a unique and valuable contribution to the whole. I also think it's important to understand the identity we share as a team can be unique to us as a team, yet still be fully aligned with the whole organization. Think of it like this: just as each individual on a team makes a unique contribution to the team, each of the teams within an organization may make a unique contribution to the whole, but they're still sharing the same identity. They're just like being a couple or a family. It's different levels, but they're all fully aligned. They still share that identity together, and so they can still use the word we when referring to the unique team, or we when we're referring to the organization. And that's important because we don't want to get into we and they or us and them, right? It's always we together. And as we look to the organization, by the way, it's important. That's where you'll generally see the larger framework defined. The mission, the vision, values, they're defined at that organizational level. And I think in healthy organizations, there's also a thread of corporate culture that would permeate throughout. But that doesn't preclude the formation of microcultures, these tight-knit groups that have kind of a personality or a way of working that's all their own. And that personality really knits them together tightly and helps them to function well as a team. And when these microcultures are aligned with and supported by the organization, there's research that shows that both the engagement and effectiveness of the team increases, and obviously that of the whole organization. Another thing I think that teams that can be unique about their identity is the elements of what I call their compelling cause. Here you want everyone to understand 4 key elements. Everybody on your team needs to know, who do we serve? And I'm talking here, it's important to understand about the external customer. I know we have internal clients, but sometimes not everyone is customer facing. But in this case, we want to go all the way out to the external customer, follow that path all the way out there, because we want to understand, who do we serve? Why do we serve them? And then how do we serve them? What is it that we do for them? And lastly, how does what we do benefit them? And if we can understand that, if everybody on the team understands those elements of their compelling cause, that really helps us to understand that our work matters. If I know who I'm serving, how I'm serving them, why I'm serving them, how what I'm doing is benefiting them, that makes it a lot easier for me to see how what I'm doing is making a difference. And I think that happens best at the micro level, not necessarily at the macro level in a large organization. Because it gets down to, what do I do every day? It's tangible, it's real, or it's directly actionable. So that's what we're, I think, trying to make clear is, what is it about this identity that we share? What do we uniquely have to offer as a team? How do we think and believe and behave every day in any and all situations? When that happens, people begin to think out of like their own DNA rather than having to have someone direct them or tell them what to do. That identity is driving their behavior. I think there's one last step we ought to talk about too in adopting this mindset that has to change, and that's that my role as a leader is changing. For one, we move from that directing activity role to cultivating this identity. We intentionally model the identity. We continually remind people of it. We call it out and reinforce it in others when we see it. But we also stop seeing everyone on the team as being there to serve our needs. We come to see that we're there. Actually, our role is to care about and bring out the best in each of them, because we want each one of them hitting on all cylinders. So it's not what do I need from them, but it's what do they need from me to be successful. And I think that means that our leadership style has changed. Remember, in the me-centered we were using do, direct, and delegate. But with identity-centered we moved to envision and equip and empower. Instead of acting as the bottleneck, we're actually now maximizing the contribution of every individual on that team. Now, the changes that we talked about might sound simple, but that doesn't mean they're easy. And I think, for one reason, I think insecurity or fear can make it hard for us to let go of direct control. It's tough to trust that everyone else is going to get this done, especially when you're still the one who's being held accountable and being measured on the results. And I think that brings us to one other layer in changing how we see ourselves as leaders that can sometimes be an adjustment. What we do every day is no longer simply rooted in the discipline that we were trained in. We're moving from a practitioner role in that discipline into a true leadership role, and that's a whole other discipline. And that can be uncomfortable, maybe even threatening. But to grow as leaders, we intentionally have to choose to make that change, even when it's hard. So what have we said today? Our goal, obviously, we want to drive stronger team performance. And I think we can do that with making this shift to putting we before me. And aside from increased performance as a team, we're also reversing those other ill effects, right? Engagement will increase. We're going to see that we probably are retaining good people longer. And we multiply capacity, which removes a barrier to our own growth and advancement. So let's summarize the steps to making this key shift. First, we redefine what we means. Move from a me-centered we, where everything revolves around you, to an identity-centered we, where everything revolves around what you share, the identity. And second, clarify what that identity is. Know that it's likely unique to your team. It's how do you, as a team, think, believe, and behave. Now, it's still aligned to the broader organization's mission, vision, and values. And the third change is we change how we see, or we change our role as leaders. We move from doing, directing, and delegating to envisioning, equipping, and empowering. And we move from managing activities to cultivating this identity. We move from control to trust. So let me ask you, what's at the center of your we? Is it you? Is it a department name or function name? Or is it a shared identity? Can you clearly articulate that for your team? How would you describe the personality and identity of your team? How do you think, believe, and behave as a team? What do you value? I challenge you to take a few minutes this week to write that down. Then talk about it with your team. Do they feel the same way? Do they see it the same way? You might be surprised at the conversations this can generate. I think it's really helpful for teams to talk about how they see themselves and their role. Hey, thanks for joining me. I hope you found this conversation helpful in changing how you think as a leader. Remember, that's really our aim, is to change how we think, because when we change how we think, we change how we lead and how we live. Thank you. Have a great day.